Hello everybody, this is Courtney with Fiber Fox Studios, as you know because you're on my channel. And I am coming to you tonight to talk about this sweater, which is the latest, greatest tutorial on my channel. And the reason why I wanted to come and talk to you guys is because all along since I started doing tutorials, a lot of you have paid attention to those descriptions that I bring up so frequently, and you have learned that I like to put a lot of information down there. And I knew at some point I was going to learn what the maximum amount of words or letters that I could put down there in the description was. And when I got this all typed up on my computer and went to go ahead and move over the description for this beautiful tulip sweater, I learned that I had met that maximum and exceeded it by quite a bit. So I had to turn around and edit, and that meant I had to take out some of the information that I was trying to give you guys in that description for this tutorial. So what I wanted to do today was do a podcast to go along with that tutorial to tell you some of those things that I had to take out. So we're going to get started with a little explanation, but I wanted to show off the sweater again. In case you haven't seen the tutorial, I'm going to have it linked below, and I'll put a little information icon. I think it goes up there in that area of the screen. I'm going to put that up there too for you guys so that you can check out that tutorial if you haven't already, at least part one. So I want to also do my little turnaround so you guys can see. This is what the back ends up looking like at the neckline and everything. And this is the arm. It's my arm. Do it look good enough? So what we're going to do is we're going to start by talking about the multiples on this thing. This thing is a multiple, the stitch pattern is a multiple of 18 plus 1. So if you are needing to go off of the suggested sizes that I have, because I am coming up with those basically from either my own size, you know, I work obviously first my own size, and then I have to refer to various sizing charts and to my friends who are different sizes, and I do have a few different plus size friends, and then of course, you know, a tiny mother that I can, you know, refer to on their sizing. But as you guys all know, like, everybody's body is different. Everybody has different areas they like to hide. Everybody wants things to fit a certain way. So my main suggestion in this podcast for you guys is, if you are struggling with figuring out which size is going to be the best size for you, go to your closet and pick out that shirt or that sweater that is your absolute favorite. Measure that. Lay it down flat, like on a table, and just measure from right to left or left to right, whichever, and get that measurement. And then refer to the description that I've provided, the measurements that I have down there, and see which one is going to be the best or closest fit to yours. And then from there, if you still want to make other adjustments, what you can do, one thing, is you can add a single crochet all the way up the panels. When you are making your panels for this in part one, you're also making the sleeves. It's different chains, and I was able to keep those chains down there, the chain count, starting chains. But you are going to need to make your two panels, body panels, and then you are going to need to make 2 sleeves, and then you move on to part 2. And part 2 specifically is about the shoulder strap area. That's what actually adds some extra length to the garment, because you're going to add straps right here in the front on whichever panel you choose to be your front panel. You're going to add 2 little pieces that connect here to the back, and as you can see on mine, you cannot tell where those connect. It does disappear, just like I said. And if you have to do like a single crochet, or I even did a half double crochet so that it would give more shape to my piece, you can do that. So if you made your panel just a little bit too small, or it's hugging in a place that you don't want it to, that's a way that after you have it done, you can do an adjustment to it. Another adjustment that you can do is, this one is the original one right here, the one that I did a year ago. I made that 1 year ago for real, not even kidding, and wore it like crazy during the winter last year. And this one is a little less open as far as the stitch work goes. Give you guys a little look right there. The only difference between this one right here on the hanger and the one that I'm wearing is really hook size. And the starting chains were slightly different. So let's say you want it to be more like this one, a little more tighter of a stitch. The only thing that you're going to do different is you're going to switch from a 5mm, or from whatever size hook I should say, that I've suggested down in the description. You're going to switch over to a 5mm or a 5.5mm hook. And the reason why you're doing that is you're going to increase your chains by 18 on the counts that I gave. You're just going to increase by 18 because, like I said, it's a multiple of 18 plus 1. My counts that I gave are the 18 plus 1. I mean, it's exactly what you need to chain, no adding at the end. So if you were dropping down your hook size to like a 5mm, that would be for someone who crochets more loosely. You're going to want to go to the 5mm, and then on this particular one, I chained 75. So essentially, I went up to the next size. If you are looking at that description, and you do need to, so you completely understand what I'm saying, but if you go look at that description, the one that I'm wearing right now, I started with the chain 57, and I'm using a 6.5mm hook. If I drop down, in my case, I tend to crochet more loosely, so I did a 5mm on this one, and I did 75 starting chains. So if you do that, you still end up with the large, or I'm sorry, it's the extra large, or 1X size. So you end up with that plus size, but you have a tighter look to the piece. So you adjust based on how you crochet. If you are a loose crocheter, you're going to go to the 5mm. If you are a tight crocheter, you're going to want to go to a 5.5mm if you want to make it a little, a little less open. So that's one of the adjustments I wanted to talk about. So that would affect each and every one of you. If you're going to go down, maybe you don't have the hook size that I'm recommending, because pretty much to adjust this thing on its sizes, there was 3 sets of starting chains, and based on the size that you were making, you're changing your hook size. So to make a larger size, you're going to go up a hook, or 2 in some cases. So when you're doing that, you end up with a little more open look to the piece. So if you are wanting a little tighter look to the piece, then you're going to go with the suggestion of the 5 or 5.5 and just add 18 chains. So for someone like me, if I was going to adjust this, I'd be dropping down to a 5mm hook, and instead of chaining 57 to start, I would chain 75. And if I was a person who was making the larger sizes like the 4X, 5X, and I wanted to go with the smaller hook size and have the more tighter, it's just slight. I mean, I'm holding them up together. It's a little hard to see this without it being on a body, but it's just very slightly more in. It's not as open of a lace work going on there. If I was someone like the 4X, 5X, then I would add, from the 75 chains that I'm suggesting in this tutorial, I would just add 18 to that. Or you can adjust however you want for your body style and size and everything. Another thing that I wanted to point out is sometimes the best way to shape a piece is just changing the hook side. So let's say that you carry your weight right here, and this is where you're self-conscious. What you're going to want to do is increase the hook size down here. And then as you get a little further up past that point where you know, are the part that you don't like that much, or you don't want anything hugging on it, which this piece doesn't really hug to anything. I mean, I got fat rolls too, just like many of you, and you're not seeing this because it's not hugging. But let's say that you just, the way that you're shaped, that is a concern of yours. You can just simply go in with a bigger hook size just to start out, because you're working bottom up on this, because it's a panel and it's meant to be in this direction like this. So that the parts that look like the flower right here, I don't know how well you can see those, but that looks like flower to me. That's why I call it a tulip sweater. You want those facing upward on your body panels. So you can go with a bigger hook down here in the lower part, maybe 2 rows of that, or I'm sorry, 2 repeats, because it'd be a total of 10 rows. So you can go with the larger hook down there and then switch down to the smaller hook and finish on up. And what that's going to do is give your piece more of like a shape like this. So it's going to flare out. So if you have, the whole, like this here down here is where you're carrying your weight, and you don't want anything to accentuate that. When you increase the hook size down on the lower 2 repeats and then go to the smaller, it's going to bring it in and it's going to hug, around here. And when you bring your pieces in and they hug through this section right here, basically like the empire up, it makes you have more of an hourglass look to your shape, which everybody loves that. So let's say that you're somebody that you don't want anything to hug. You want this to flow out completely. Increase the hook size or increase those counts on the chain. That starting chain or the hook is your key to all the adjustments that you want to make on this thing. So now let's talk real briefly about sleeves. As I said in the tutorial, in the part 3 of the tutorial, I wanted my sleeve to have the scalloped edge down here. And I also like my sleeves to be a little bit longer. That's just my personal preference. So I did 4 repeats of the same exact pattern. So I made my body panel using that same part 1. You make your sleeves. They're just not quite as wide as the body panel. They're essentially, going to be turned into tubes. So you're going to make a smaller chain, and I list that down there in the description. You're going to make that smaller chain and then work them, like a long rectangle. And then you fold it over and that forms the tube. You stick it on here and you have arms. So if you are particular about that whole direction of the stitches and the way the pattern is moving, you are going to want to pay attention really closely. On my very first one, I can't even believe I'm going to tell you all this, but on my very first one that I made back there, I had one sleeve going in one direction, so moving this way. The other sleeve, the stitches were moving upward, so they matched with the body panel. I realized that after I'd stitched everything up and had tied off some ends, and I had to very carefully find that little knot that I made and clip it and pull all that out, and it's very, very frustrating. So just pay attention to that. When you lay this thing out, lay it out how you're going to stitch it together. Check and make sure those stitches and all that work is going in the same direction. If you flip your sleeves upside down, I mean, nobody's saying anything about mine. I think it works well. It just did look funny to have one going in one way. Maybe nobody else would have noticed, but I noticed. So that's another tip I have. And then the last thing that I want to bring up to you guys is when you are making this piece, it is really important that you get enough yarn. You do not want to get part way through and not be able to finish it. So if you're specifically for people who are having to order yarn, pay attention to those counts that I'm giving you on the number of balls that you need. That's right up there at the top. I also am listing yards, and I can't really tell you in another type of yarn. Like I use the Barcelona Loops and Threads Barcelona. I can't tell you that if you're using one of the Lion brands, like what is it? Is it Homespun or no? Well, that would be one that somebody could use. Or one of the other ones, the Homeland, I think that might be a bulky. If you're using another brand of yarn, a different type of bulky yarn, I'm not necessarily going to be able to tell you this is how many balls you're going to need in that. And I may be telling you too many yards. I'm having to basically look at the Barcelona label and then try to multiply that and maybe take off a little. I did not use all 3 balls on mine. I'm saying get 3 balls because I went into that third ball. I used 2 full balls, 100%. And then I went into the third ball. How much I went in is kind of hard to say because I had to make some test panels. So it wasn't even half of it. I didn't even go through half of it, but I can't say, for sure on the yards because number 1, I can't measure it all. Number 2, it's hard to adjust. So in my mind, it's always better to have more yarn than not enough yarn. So that's how I look at it. Hopefully you guys feel the same. You can always pick this yarn up if you're here in the US on sale. You can buy it a ball at a time. I think the max number of balls you'll need is really going to be for the largest size, the 5X. And that's because you may be doing adjustments on the length of this. I did, on mine, this one in particular, I did 5 repeats on the body panel and 5, in the back. So both panels 5. On the one previous that I'd made, I did 6 repeats for my back panel and only 5 in the front because I wanted the back to go down a little bit further to cover my butt. And I'm going to try to back up. Hopefully you guys can see. So this is how the side ends up looking with the slit. I'm actually going to be bringing mine in just another inch. But this thing still covers the butt. Somewhat anyway. It's not like, you know, it's not up here at the, you know, small of my back. So those are the tips and tricks I wanted to give you guys. If I think of anything else, I will definitely, you know, probably do another video. But I think I've covered it all. Basically, the main thing I want to tell you is measure something you have if you're not sure. Check your panels against something that you have that you like the fit on. You don't want to finish this whole thing and then hate it. You know, my tension might be different than yours, and I crocheted each and every size in a panel in the number of chains, and I measured each and every one. But the way I crochet versus how you crochet could be very different. There's no gauge on that. There's no way for me to tell you 100% that yours will end up being the same size because everybody's work is going to be a little bit different. So that's why I say check it. Check those sizes, check the measurements, convert it if you need to if you're in another country, and check it against something that you like. That's the main thing. Like if you like something on yourself, try to make this sweater match that. It's going to be a different look, but it's going to give you that same fit. So hopefully this little podcast has been helpful. Hopefully I've answered some of the questions. Please, 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 please don't think this is too hard. These are some panels. The shoulders, they are just little short versions of this panel. I did 3 separate tutorials for those because of the chains that we started with. That changed how you're doing those. But the part 2 that goes with the size that you're making, it's going to show you the complete thing. I show you the exactly what you need to do. You don't rewind that video. Once you follow through with me, then you're done with that shoulder panel. And then you move over here to the other side and do the same exact thing over here. So I feel like that right there should help a little bit because that's probably the trickiest thing. Otherwise, you're just making rectangles. It's all you're making. And the stitches are really just single crochet, double crochet, and the most complicated is the cluster, which is not complicated. When you watch the video, you'll see that. So I hope that a lot of you will try this sweater out. I hope that you're going to make it. I really, really, really hope that you post a picture on social media and do the hashtag so that I can see it. Thank you guys so, so much for watching. Have a great night. Bye.